One of my least favorite parts of any project is wiring. That's just because it doesn't come natural to me and I really don't know that much about it. But today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering the wiring for these headlights, as well as looking at the engine wiring harness underneath the hood and how that's run to the inside and how it's hooked up to the ECU, relay box, and fuse box of the old chassis car, as well as the new stuff from Haltech. I'm sure this video is going to make the electronic specialists cringe a lot, so disclaimer, and I apologize, especially for my headlight wiring, as I just have this one wire going down there that we'll get to in a minute and talk all about these headlights and everything special with that. But first off, I wanted to cover the wiring harness for this engine, since that's something that we didn't take too much time on in the full build video that I posted a few weeks ago. So this is a Boost Brothers harness that was put together by them, and this uses Haltech sensors and components all around. One pretty unique thing about the setup is that we have a throttle cable instead of electronic throttle. This is actually a VR6 throttle body, so we don't have any sort of electronics going on in the throttle system, which has its pros and cons. But we're very happy with that. And the first sensors are down here. So right there, this is our throttle position sensor, I believe, as well as we have the sensor that goes into the lug for the blow-off valve. And then that all is on its own little harness. And then on the other side of that harness, down there, you won't be able to see it, but there's oil pressure and crank position, as well as the wideband on the other side. And those all go down to the bottom side of the car. And I'll also go down there and show you guys the starter motor set up in a little bit. But then we have our injectors and coils, pretty standard. All of this comes together in this very crazy junction. Again, this will make some of you guys cringe, I'm sure. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. All this comes together right here, and this is wrapped around and goes into this grommet. This is the way that a lot of the guys have done it in the past with this exact harness. One of the biggest problems we had was getting this harness as it was and getting this coolant temperature sensor in on the back of the motor for the water neck. We actually had to cut the Chinese finger trap material that goes around all the wires to get that actually around and get enough slack out of it to get it into that. So that was a little bit of a pain. Down here, this is our fuel pressure. Because we have a manual fuel pressure gauge as well, over here we don't have that. But one of the problems with that is because that sensor doesn't have a signal, if you get on the throttle, it'll trigger check engine light because it doesn't have a fuel pressure sensor. At least that's what we are thinking is most likely cause for that. And then over here, we have our big old ground for the entire harness, and that goes into a chassis mount right there. That was another big thing that that took a while for me to work out, was getting this ground, first of all, off of the harness because it was kind of in the middle of everything, and also getting this surface down here prepped because I painted the firewall and the rest of the engine bay, as you can see with all this paint here. All of this is just chassis and roll bar high temperature paint, and this was put on by a brush, so it's really thick. And trying to get this surface all clean down there for the ground took a few tries. Coming around to the battery, another problem that we were kind of facing is with, if it rains and you open the hood while there's water all over the hood, it'll all drip down here, and it gets really close to the battery. It doesn't ever touch any of the wires. That's something that we really need to work out before we open it again after it rains, because that could be really bad for some of these wires. Of course, typical battery stuff. This hot goes through this silver sheathing here and all the way down to the starter. And then this hot goes to the red side bus bar. And a lot of these wires go inside the car for various different things. We have a lot going on down there. I don't actually remember what all this stuff does because it's a lot of functions for interior stuff, and I believe one of them is also for the fan. This one over here in the back corner, this is our VVT sensor, and this is brand new, and believe it or not, When we first started the car, which I think I have that clip in the long video, it dumped about 2 quarts of oil out from underneath the car. And all of that was coming out from this sensor because it had a bad O-ring down there. So we replaced, actually, it wasn't just the O-ring, it was the entire system. It was bent, so it wasn't sealing right. And there was also 2 holes on the block that were left unplugged. So we also had to plug those up. But after we plugged those up, we realized it was still leaking and it was coming out of this. So this is new, and this is our VVT sensor. So that's obviously very important to have. Again, I kind of wanted to make this video as a little bit of an overview of the project, electronic-wise, not so much as how to do stuff. But if you're a little bit stuck on some stuff, we might have some advice. So leave a comment if you have any questions. And you can see over here the cables that go to the starter, and all those just go straight up into the engine bay and across behind the engine as well. So let's go ahead and go on to the interior for the ECU stuff. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this stuff because I already did in the long build video, but this right here, this is a wire that's going to eventually have power on it, and it goes out of the car for the fan. We have this very nice plate from Circuit Works, not sponsored, but we have the keychain on the keys, as well as the Haltech, of course. This board that holds the ECU and the wideband controller, these go to the oxygen sensors, and then our fuse and relay box for the Haltech, which goes straight into the harness and also into the ECU. This big master connector goes into the harness, and that's where the ECU gets all of its information from, as well as from a CAN bus, which goes from here back behind the dash up into the actual dashboard that gives all of our data live. That's basically it for the electronics. Like I said, this is a Boost Brothers made harness, and it's something that they offer with their swap kit, and of course all with Haltech sensors and whatnot. And one more thing over here, this is our flex fuel sensor. This is what's going to allow us to run E85. We don't have the actual plug-in yet for it, but this goes through our fuel system, and that is going to allow us to run this computer with E85 and make a lot more power. And that's something that we're also going to need bigger injectors for, but that's for later down the road. So now let's go ahead and get on to the headlights, and we're going to show how I wired those up from start to finish. So right here I have these eBay halo lights. These are LEDs. They were about 40 bucks off of eBay. They're 7-inch and they're made for Jeeps technically, but they have the same universal connector that most headlights have. You can see back here. But these empty eye sockets aren't doing very much good for us during the rain and at night, so it's time to replace and upgrade these things from the halogens to something a little bit more unique and special. So this thing has the standard connector as well as 2 individual connectors to run the DRLs. One of these wires is for the white halo and one of them is for the amber halo, and both sides are a little bit different, so we're going to go ahead and get into that. So right here we have the ring from the stock headlights. This goes right over that nicely. And this thing attaches with 3 sheet metal screws divided along the diameter here. Another thing that we did with these headlights is we fixed them up. A little hard to see, but right here, this is bolted into the frame to keep the movement out of this, and they're both aligned up. But we did that because right now there's really no room for the headlight motors, and there's a big arm system and stuff up here as well. We didn't want to deal with managing room for that, as well as trying to get those electronics to work. I don't even know what their connectors are, but we're going to tighten this down in all 3 corners, make sure this thing is centered. Do the same thing over here, and then we're going to plug them in, and they should be working with the stock switch. All right, so we got both sides bolted down, and already this is looking a lot cooler up here. So as I mentioned, these connectors plug right up, this 3-prong into this, which is just shoved up here for the headlight. And I also have a few new things wired. On each side I have a small wire that goes down to the connector for the DRL switch. Yellow one right here as well. Those goes into the connectors on the bottom so that we can put the colored wires with those and have ourselves a daytime running light function as well on the switch. So these are just not tucked up yet, just plugged in. Green wire for the white light on this side and the red wire for the white light on this side. Not sure if that's intentional. They are eBay lights, so it could be a mistake. But this is for our white light. So we can go to the switch here, put this on the middle position, and we have our side markers as well as our white halos. And these look really cool. They look a little bit intimidating as well. And then we have the other wire plugged in for the amber halos. And these look really cool as well, but they don't exactly match the headlights. If we go turn those on by flipping the switch all the way, they don't exactly match those. So we're gonna go with the white ones for now, and then we're going to package everything back up. Each headlight has this big black plastic shroud around it, and they go in with these very satisfying ridges, and everything lines up a lot better. And it also helps tie the entire thing together once you put the plate over the top. And then everything will click together nicely and go on with some more sheet metal screws. All right, there we go. Everything is buttoned back up and closed up. And unfortunately, I can't take it outside or take it down the street to get some real life night clips because of the axle right now. The axle is really jacked up on the driver's side. It's seized up in one of the ends. So we're gonna have to get a new one because it's bouncing like crazy and it won't flex at the joint like it's supposed to. Anyways, I will turn the lights off in here and we can get some looks of these lights with the DRLs, low beams, and high beams. First with just the DRLs. Pretty good light coming from these. I love that look. And then we'll turn the key and go low beam. Pretty good spread. These are actually, it's very similar lighting to my mom's Mini Cooper. That gets the middle lit up. Steering stalk switch. And those will put the high beams on. So I guess, yes, everything's lit up now. Might have just been seeing things wrong. These put out a pretty good amount of light. We have to get some real world driving testing in. They're pretty well aligned. The high beams aren't crazy good, but the low beams are pretty good. And because it's concentrated in this small area, the high beams are kind of just going at the toolbox and not getting a full spread. But looking forward to using these in weather and at night. And they look really cool. If we turn the headlights back off, just leave the DRLs. These are gonna look really cool driving around at daytime, just to see these halos. That's gonna be all for this video. The next video might be a little bit of a part 2 with some light pods, hopefully mounted up here. This is a very good flat surface to mount those, and I actually have some in mind. They're on my Volvo, so either we reuse the ones off the Volvo or we get the same ones because those also have good mounting points, and those will look really good up here alongside the light pods and kind of complete the rally look of the front end. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.